Hi, this is Deborah Arca with the Pathos Book Club, and my guests today are Greg and Lisa Popcak, the authors of a new book called Just Married, The Catholic Guide to Surviving and Thriving in the First 5 Years of Marriage. Hello, Lisa and Greg.
Hello,
Hi,
how are
Deborah.
you?
Thanks for having us today.
Greg is a marriage and family therapist. Lisa is a family life coach. They're both counselors, educators, authors, and they're also radio hosts of a nationally syndicated radio show called More to Life. More to Life. And
Hey,
that's syndicated in something like 25 cities, right?
yes, that's right. Over about 30 cities there.
Okay, great. So thanks for being with us today. We're talking about your new book, Just Married. What compelled you to write a book about the first 5 years of marriage?
Well, we're in the third generation of the culture of divorce, and all the research is really showing that couples today are less secure in their marriages, especially starting out, newlyweds are less secure in their relationships than any other generation before. And also, of course, most divorces occur within the first 10 years of marriage, with the majority of those happening in the first five. And so it seemed pretty necessary for us, or to us rather, to write a book that really talked about what it takes to make it to happily ever after. What are those habits that a couple needs to establish early on in the relationship to get things off to a good start?
Also, we have kids from age 20 on down to 7, and a lot of our son's friends would come and have dinner with us and talk with us, and they're getting engaged or thinking about getting engaged. And they would ask us questions, and a lot of them would say, gosh, I wish somebody would write all this down in a book. I wish my fiance that's, 500 miles away could hear all this. And so it sort of inspired it as, well, let's take the dinner table conversations and put them in a book that anybody can use.
So that kitchen table wisdom for the rest of the world, that's a great idea. Well, you say in your book that all couples really have what it takes to have a successful marriage as long as they're willing to learn new skills. Give us an idea of what some of these new skills are and how learning that might lead to a happier and healthier marriage.
Well, one of the most important skills is learning to watch your emotional temperature in arguments. And that sounds common sense, like common sense, but the reality is when we get into arguments, we become so focused on what the other person is saying and how the other person is treating us that we don't pay attention to what's going on inside our bodies. And what will happen if we allow ourselves to heat up too much, and it's actually a lot less than most people think, then literally our brains start to shut down. Functional MRI studies will show that the logical part of your brain goes offline and your emotional centers of your brain light up like a Christmas tree, which means you just start running off at the mouth and you start blaming the other person and shifting responsibility. And the conversation stops being a problem-solving conversation and becomes a blaming conversation. And that actually happens right about the time you start rolling your eyes and making faces at the other person, not even when you're yelling at them. So the temperature has to be a lot lower for productive conversations to happen than most people even think.
Yeah.
And keeping a sense of your own emotional temperature allows you to get what you need out of that conversation, make it productive, rather than letting your brain go offline and actually being really a tantruming 2-year-old in the midst of a conversation that's burning up a whole lot of energy, but not really getting anything you really want or need from your spouse.
Yeah, and you talk about in your book about how you step out of a conversation or a disagreement, how you step out and take a break, and how that actually serves the relationship and actually cares for yourself and your partner.
Which again is a common enough idea, but honestly most people do that too late. And so quote unquote taking a break looks more like, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. Oh yes you are, and then you chase each other around from room to room trying to have the discussion.
Or you stamp out of the room and slam the door, which is not what we're talking about when we talk about taking a break. It's actually really counterproductive and really puts your spouse on the defensive rather than working for both of your good.
At lower levels on that temperature scale, we're talking about taking a break means saying something like, hey, listen, my throat's really dry. I'm going to grab a quick drink. Can I get you something? Or I need to use the restroom. I'll promise I'll be back in just a couple minutes. We can finish up. Or at the higher end of that temperature scale, saying something like, look, I really want to talk about this with you, but I can't hear what you're saying when we're going at it like this. Can we just take some time to think and pray about this and come back to it later? And then you set up a time to actually follow up. If you just stomp out of the room and say, I'm not going to do this anymore, then that's useless. That's not a break. That's a power play.
Yeah, and what I appreciate that this conversation is assuming is that yes, there is going to be conflict in marriages. There are going to be really difficult disagreements, and so you're saying here's how you walk through these or navigate these while kind of holding on to each other.
Well, yeah, in point of fact, on the heels of actually, marriage evolves through different stages. There are several different stages of the marital life cycle, and the second stage after the honeymoon stage is conflict and negotiation. And if you make it through that stage, then that leads to what's called the new pattern stage, where the couple has identified new ways to bring these two different worlds together and negotiate their day-to-day rituals and routines. But you got to make it through a fair amount of conflict to get to that new pattern stage.
Oh, heck, of course there's going to be conflict. We have conflict inside ourselves, right? I want that piece of pie. No, I want to stay on my diet. I want that piece of pie. We all have conflict. We're going to have conflict with our spouse, even if we love them to bits. Knowing how to handle it, having the skills makes that conflict not a scary thing. And so many of us grew up where conflict was scary. You needed to run away from it because it was destructive to your family. It made people cry or hide or scream. This says, sure, you're going to have to negotiate some things, but here's the way to do it safely. It gives you both what you need and are looking for, and actually brings you closer together into a more loving relationship than you were before you took on that conflict.
And surprisingly, research actually shows that couples who are in good marriages have as many arguments as couples who are in struggling marriages.
Yeah.
It's just that those couples who are in good marriages manage that conflict differently.
Yeah. Okay, so here's another thing. A lot of times people get married and, a year in they think, oh my gosh, I have made the biggest mistake. I'm sure that's probably not not totally uncommon. What do you tell couples who get to that place where, oh dear, what have I done?
Well, hang in there. Because the reality is that is a common experience. Every single one of us hits the wall at some point in marriage. We get to a place where the love that I have in my heart runs out. We're all broken people, and we have a lot of love in our hearts to give, but marriage takes even more. And when you hit that wall, you have to be able to draw from some other source, which is why one of the things we keep returning to again and again in the book is the importance of couple prayer. Because when that love runs dry in your own heart, you need to be able to draw from that immense well of God's love that comes from His heart. And if we're not apprenticing by praying together, then we're not learning how to love each other with God's love. And so I guess I would say those two things. Number one, hang in there and be faithful to those vows, even when you don't feel like your partner deserves it. Number two, go to God together and ask Him for the strength and for the reserves that will carry you through those tough times, because you will get through the other end of it if you hang in there with Him.
And I really want to emphasize what Greg's saying when he says together. And we talk to people every day and we'll say, well, have you prayed about that decision that you're making together? Or have you prayed about that argument you had last night together? And we'll always get the same reaction. Well, I'm praying for my spouse, or I prayed about the argument, but it's the I. And it's when you pray together, when you actually say, all right, we're both going to humble ourselves to come and just sit on the couch together, hold hands, and just talk to God. It doesn't have to be, a novena or, a rosary or something formal with incense. It just has to be the two of you saying, we sort of hit this bump in the road, and we need you, God, because we can't do it alone.
Yeah. Great advice. You think there's anything in your book there for older couples?
Yeah, no question. As I was saying, at the very beginning, marriage tends to build on precedent, and a lot of times couples who are having a harder time in their relationship, say 10, 15 years down the road, a lot of those problems are rooted in the habits that they didn't establish, actually, in the very beginning of their relationship. Habits that make sure that they have time to talk and to pray and to work and to play together. Newlyweds tend to have more time to do those things, and they just assume it's always going to be that way. Not establishing those healthy marriage care habits in the early years of relationship cause those rituals that happen naturally to evaporate before the couples even realize it. So we talk a lot about how to establish those healthy marriage habits, or for older couples, couples who've been more experienced in marriage, to go back and look at what are the basic things that are maybe missing from the relationship from the very beginning, that if they don't put in place, they won't be able to take advantage of other techniques or tools that they might gain from counseling or other self-help resources.
Well, it's always a good idea to sort of brush up. We all have seasons to our marriage. You get through, the time where the babies keep you up all night, and then you're saying, oh, there you are. I remember you, and who are you again? Or when the kids finally, go out into the world and they're in high school or college or gone. And you're thinking, I'd like to have that great marriage we started out wanting. I'd like to kind of polish the apple. It's a great book to dip into and say, I'm going to recommit to you. I love you, and let's make this, brand new and a brand new romance together again. And
Yeah.
all those things are in there.
And I should note here that you two have been married nearly 25 years, right?
Yes, yeah,
So
we'll celebrate our 25th anniversary in May.
So happy anniversary! So you have a little bit of wisdom to speak from. So that's terrific. Here's just a last question: did you enjoy writing this book? What was
Oh, it's horrible. No.
what was
No,
what
actually, it
was
was a
life?
lot of fun.
Yeah, what was life giving writing? What was life giving for you writing this book? And what was difficult about writing this book?
Honestly, for me, the thing that was life-giving and difficult was the same thing because, most of our books tend to be more self-helpy, more advice-driven books. This was a little more autobiographical. The Ave Maria Press wanted us to share a little bit more of our story throughout the book. And, being that honest with the reader was hard, honestly. We've always had a great relationship, but things haven't always gone well for us.
We've gone through a lot of really, really tough challenges.
I mean, the first 5 years of marriage, there was poverty, there was sickness, there was
real sickness, life-threatening sickness.
Loss of a child, financial issues, job issues. We went through the gamut of better and worse, richer and poor, and sickness and health. So we covered the bases at that time. So. It was hard to do that, but I think it made it good.
Sharing that it was hard to go through it again, but it was also, wow, we really did do this, and God was always faithful, and we really can say, if we can do it, anybody can.
Amen.
He got us through it all.
Amen. We don't have any special talents or abilities for this. We come from perfectly normal family backgrounds.
Even some challenging ones.
Yeah, and our parents' marriages were fine, but nothing to write home about necessarily. So this is not something that we were born to. We learned this just like anybody else can.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, we are so grateful and the better off for it, for having you two in the world, counseling our children at your dinner table and through your book, Just Married. Go to the Pathos Book Club for more. The Popcaks have also shared some great wisdom for navigating the holidays, which are coming up, with us on how you stay married through the holidays, which is can always be
a whole book just on that.
Yeah, we could write a whole book just on that. Thanks so much for your time. Blessings on your ministry. We'll talk to you again.
Bless.
Bye bye.